Have you ever wondered if vampires could be more than just figments of our imagination, crafted by horror authors? Delving into the world of the unknown, we often find ourselves entranced by the enigmatic allure of vampires. These creatures, shrouded in mystery, are omnipresent in our pop culture, captivating us with their enigmatic existence. From ancient folklore to modern literature, their tales have been spun across centuries, giving them an eternal life of their own. Let's uncover the mysteries of these ancient immortal beings. The tale of vampires is as old as civilization itself. This statement is not an exaggeration. The concept of vampiric entities has been present in various cultures throughout history, with each culture adding a unique spin to the lore. Let's start with ancient Mesopotamia, considered one of the cradles of civilization. Here, tales of Ekimu or Edimu were prevalent. These were spirits or demons who were not buried properly and returned to haunt the living, draining them of life force. They were not the fanged, suave beings of modern lore, but nonetheless they were our first glimpse into the world of vampires. Moving westward to ancient Greece, we encounter the Lamia. Named after a queen who became a child-eating demon, Lamia was often depicted as a serpentine figure with a woman's head and breasts. She was said to suck the blood of young men, further solidifying the connection between ancient folklore and modern vampire tales. In the Hebrew tradition, we find Lilith, a night demon who was also associated with consuming human blood. In Slavic mythology, there were creatures called upirs, which later morphed into the term vampire. These upirs were said to be reanimated corpses that fed on human blood. Despite the vast geographical and cultural differences, a common thread runs through these early vampire tales: the fear of the dead returning to harm the living. The methods varied, from draining life force, consuming blood, to bringing disease and death, but the essence remained the same. Yet, these early vampires were often more demon-like than human, lacking the charm and charisma of their modern counterparts. They were creatures to be feared and avoided, not romanticized. There's also a marked shift in the vampire's appearance over time. From the monstrous forms of ancient lore, we now have an image of a sophisticated, alluring, and often aristocratic being. So these were the earliest versions of vampires, but how did we get to the modern interpretation of these creatures? Stay tuned as we delve deeper into the evolution of vampires in our next segment. The vampire, as we know it today, is a more recent concoction. As we journey through history, it's clear that the image of the vampire has been constantly evolving, shaped by the fears and beliefs of each era. In the 18th century, the vampire mythology took a significant turn in Europe. The image of the vampire as a blood-sucking creature of the night emerged from a combination of folklore, superstition, and a misunderstanding of post-mortem decomposition. During this time, vampires were often depicted as reanimated corpses that roamed the night, feeding on the living to sustain their own undead existence. But the true evolution of the vampire, as we understand it today, really began to take shape with the advent of literature. The written word has a powerful way of immortalizing and shaping our perceptions of these creatures. And in the realm of vampire mythology, no character has had a more profound impact than Count Dracula. Bram Stoker's Dracula, published in 1897, became the blueprint for the modern vampire. Dracula was not just a mindless creature of the night, but a sophisticated and charming aristocrat with a dark secret. This portrayal, a radical departure from the ghoulish figures of folklore, forever changed the vampire narrative. Stoker's vampire was not only feared, but also strangely alluring, adding a new layer of complexity to these creatures of the night. This shift in portrayal allowed vampires to take center stage in popular culture. They became main characters in novels, films, and television shows, each iteration adding new dimensions to the vampire mythology. From the romantic Edward Cullen in Twilight to the ruthless Lestat in Anne Rice's Vampire Chronicles, the evolution of the vampire continues to captivate our collective imagination. Indeed, the vampire has come a long way. From a misunderstood corpse in European folklore to an iconic figure in popular culture, the vampire has evolved to reflect our deepest fears and desires. But beyond their evolution in folklore and literature, what distinguishes these creatures is their extraordinary abilities. These stories may have shaped our perception of vampires, but what powers do these creatures possess? Vampires are believed to possess a variety of supernatural abilities. And these aren't your run-of-the-mill party tricks, mind you. We're talking about powers that have made these creatures the subject of countless tales and legends throughout history. At the top of this list, of course, is immortality. It's the most well-known characteristic of vampires, the ability to exist indefinitely without aging or falling ill. This means they can live through centuries, witnessing the rise and fall of civilizations, the evolution of mankind, and the ever-changing world. Next up is superhuman strength. Now, we're not just talking about being able to lift a few extra pounds at the gym. No. Vampires possess strength far beyond human capabilities, allowing them to overpower their victims with terrifying ease. This power, combined with their immortality, makes them formidable predators. But what would a vampire be without its ability to transform into bats? This power, while not as prevalent in all vampire lore, is still a fascinating one. Imagine the freedom of taking flight, disappearing into the night sky and re-emerging in a completely different form. It's a power that has captured the imaginations of storytellers for centuries, but let's not forget, every rose has its thorns and every vampire its weaknesses. Sunlight, the life-giving force for most living creatures, is deadly to vampires. Exposure to the sun's rays can cause them to burn and ultimately perish. And then there's garlic, a seemingly mundane ingredient in our kitchens, but a potent deterrent for these creatures of the night. Then there are the more symbolic weaknesses. The vampire's inability to enter a home uninvited speaks to their violation of societal norms, while their aversion to holy symbols and running water suggests a rejection of purity and life. These powers and characteristics, this blend of strength and vulnerability, of horror and fascination, have made vampires a captivating topic for generations. They embody our fears, our desires, our curiosities, and our sense of the unknown. And as long as these elements remain part of the human experience, vampires will continue to haunt our stories and our imaginations. So there you have it, a deep dive into the enigmatic world of vampires. We've journeyed through their origins, evolution, and unearthed their potent powers. If you're thirsty for more, don't be shy. Subscribe, comment, and share this video with your friends. And if you're feeling generous, consider supporting this channel through the Buy Me a Coffee program. Every bit helps us bring you high-quality content. Don't forget to subscribe, comment for the algorithm, and share with your friends. And if you can, consider buying me a coffee to support the channel. Thank you all for watching, and stay curious.